So now what are presentations? So now coming down to the next topic. So presentation is again very, very important part of any individual, because obviously it is a presentation has to do with a visual medium, it could be, and that visual medium could be anything. For that matter, it could be LCD projectors, it could be PowerPoint slides, and so well that, basically when we talk about presentations, we talk about that we need to understand here that supposedly given a chance that we need to speak to a large audience. So it could be on anything. It could be that I have to inform, it could be that I have to persuade, or it could be that I have to entertain. This could there could be three purposes for presentation. But I need to be very careful. One needs to be very careful that once you give your presentation, once you present to a larger audience, because presentation means that you have to speak to an audience. Now, reason could be any. So it has to be very, very effective, and it could be very critical if you are in a professional workplace. And so you have to really hone your presentation skills, and you have to work upon it, whether it's your speech, how convincing that you are, and even back in the house, that how convincingly and substantially that you can talk to your family, your friends, and if there's any situation that you need to address to. So what is really the purpose of presentation? So first is, the major elements are that there's a presenter is there, there's an audience that is there, and then you have the content, whatever needs to be spoken, whatever needs to be delivered. Content is whatever needs to be told to the audience and delivered to the audience. Now purpose could be first educational, of course, here you can, obviously if it is educational, it could be in the form of a seminar, it could be in the form of conferences, it could be in the form of orientation programs, it could be in the form of workshops where you have to train, where you have to inform, where you have to put forward key points, and definitely it could be persuasive. Persuasive is where you have to advertise, where you can, some kind of action that is needed. And persuasive is, for example, you can say that all the political, leaders, when they give their speech, the speech is so persuasive. Persuasive is to inspire, to motivate, to change an opinion, and narrative is to broadcast any kind of a message or you need to tell a story, and narrative is in the form of entertainment. For example, there's a private party and then you speak up to the audience, you need to say something to the audience, so that could be just for the sake of entertainment. So we have certain presentation softwares are there, and these softwares would help you to create slides, and you can also have, along with your speech, you can also support your speech, your content with these software presentations, and it could be a multimedia presentation. So and you can incorporate all the texts and graphics and all animations and all videos and sounds can be incorporated in your presentation. Characteristics of a good presentation. So there's always a structure to a presentation. So it has to do with that you have to first introduce yourself, then you have to put down and speak the discussion part that's there, and you have to conclude it as well. So you also have to keep in mind that when you write your discussion, whenever that you're going to discuss on anything, your audience need is very important. What is the interest? What sort of an audience that you're dealing with? What is the age, the sex, whether male, whether female, whether it's like a group of old people that you're addressing, whether it's children that you're addressing, and what is the need of the audience is important. What is the level of understanding of your audience is important, and then you write down your your speech likewise. And facts and figures, like you have to be very, very right, very well researched, and you can incorporate tables and graphs and charts via multimedia presentations you can do. And there could be a lot of humor that you can add to your speech, and small anecdotes or stories that you can narrate, very short and small short stories that you can put forward, just to lend a humor. It is a kind of an interlude. And and whosoever is speaking, the presenter has to speak very logically and use a body language which is very inclusive, very effective, very powerful, very motivating, and with lot of confidence. And then what is like, so before you go in for presentation, you have to prepare. Now how do you need to prepare? This is very important. So you have to first identify the purpose. The presenter has to ask, why I'm giving this, why are you, what is it that I'm supposed to do, why I'm giving this presentation. This is very important. So it will help the presenter to organize the ideas, and the ideas has to be organized in a very linear chronological manner, and because you have to be very convincing to your audience. Then you have to analyze the audience, needs to be analyzed, and you need to identify the needs. This is important, because what kind of an audience are you really dealing with here? So who's your audience and what are they attending, your presentations? What is their needs, what is it that they expect from you? What is the background? And how much knowledge that do they have, and how many people are there, that you're going to address, and what is going to be the attitude towards your subject. That needs to be kept in mind. Only then that you can draft your speech accordingly. Likewise, definitely audience is very, very important. And of course, it could be approximately, it is said that any presentation that one gives should be of approximately 30 minutes, unless that it's a program for entertainment. If there's any kind of college program, university program, or even at a workplace, so there's some dance, music, drama, and some presentation has to be made. So that can go on for whatever length of time, 1 to maximum 2 hours. But of course, we need to keep in mind that if it is a 30 minutes supposedly a presentation, then introduction should not be more than 3 minutes. Main body has to be, so time has to be divided. 15 to 20 minutes should be the main body. And lastly, the conclusion could be again of 3 to 4 minutes at the most. And then there could be a question answer round amounting to just 10 minutes. So obviously, it has to be very clear and it needs to be completed at the given time. So the time should not be exceeded. Even if it is for 2 hours, a program that is going on and there's a presenter who is presenting the program, even, has to keep in mind that adherence to time is very important. And now there are certain guidelines, how it has to be, if there are visual aids. So one should not use many images. Less of images should be used. And even if, one is taking the help of graphics, that has to be like the speaker. If supposedly the speaker plans the graphics and according to the main point, so one has to see that the point needs to match well with the graphics. That is very important. You have to use bold and clear letters so that everybody, even those who are sitting right at the back at the end of the room, needs to really read you. Because if it is in the form of PPT, you can make PPTs, but you have to keep in mind that the font has to be large enough, it has to be bold enough so that people can read it. And different colors can be used, but keep it to minimal. And write in single words and short phrases. It should not, and because obviously it can be in bullets, but you do not have to be in very much detail. And you have to reveal one point at a time. Let there be not too many points in one slides. A slide can have one point in one slide, and then you can have subtopics on that. And every slide needs to be numbered. And you can also, please ensure that you do rehearsal of your presentation, which is very, very important. Because unless that you do rehearsal of your presentation, you will never be able to align yourself with the time. So obviously this is important. The speakers should always explain the purpose and content of each slide, displayed. Then time the presentation. As I just said, that timing is very important in actual practice. So this only will come with practice. If you do not practice, then you cannot conform to timing. So people tend to ignore the fact that it is the audience interest and attention which is very, very important. You have to keep your audience in awe, in attention, of you. So time should not exceed. You have to be just on time and finish on time, and you don't have to wander, you do not have to ramble here and there. So very, very important is, and do not be repetitive and over repetitive. and your pacing, your speed needs to be very well maintained. You should be very careful where you have to have a higher pitch and a lower pitch, where you need to have your pauses. All your non-verbal cues are very, very important when it comes to timing. Then you have to become very familiar with the location. So before making, once you've made your presentation and you've written and you've organized it, so now you have to be very sure where you are going to present it, because is it a small room, is it a large room, it is a conference hall, what sort of a area that you're going to stand and present. Why? Because obviously you have to have your voice modulation accordingly. You have to have your PPTs, your words, your fonts. Everything goes by the size of the room. So you have to ensure where you're going, and the lighting system, what sort of is the sound system, everything needs to, you have to and be very sure that everything is intact, everything is in place. And of course you will have a crowd, so you have to keep in mind that too much of information is not necessary, and too less of information is also not necessary. So you have to maintain a balance, and and every slide should not have more than 8 lines, right? It should not exceed more than 8 lines. Minimum could be 6, but not more than 8 lines. So 48 words is the limit that you should keep in mind. And so you have to also check the presentation, that the projector is working. Definitely once everything is ready, your audience is sitting, you have everything in place, you have to ensure that you have everything ready. The presentation is working, and the laptop is there, the battery is there, everything. Mistakes you have to avoid. There are certain mistakes, like don't start with PowerPoint immediately. Like no sooner that you start your presentation, you first speak, and first you have to speak a little for 5 minutes, and after you've spoken for 5 minutes, then you can align your speech with PPT. And don't start writing before planning. So you have, before that you plan, before you start writing, you have to have a clear plan. And you don't have to be the center of attention. You have to talk to your audience. This is very important. And so don't use just whatever that you've written. You have to speak also other than what you've written. So you have to be very well practiced. So translate everything. Try and translate. Don't just appear as if that you are reading and speaking. So let you be very natural, and don't try to say a lot and too much. Just say little in a very good language, and in a very concise and a precise way, and very effective way. And you cannot afford to be boring. So you have to have your write-up very, very interesting, and very, very interesting, and don't be very subtle, but you can be very bold and clear and very compelling, and don't talk too fast, too quickly. And you can also have a little bit of pauses in between to be able to let your audience ponder, and to be able to hear from them if there are any questions that are asked. And so of course you start the slides a little after 5 minutes, as said, and don't lead it with your slide, and speak directly to your audience, and use the visual aids only to be able to make them understand better. And definitely you have to need to practice. Well, visual aids in presentation. So now, what are the visual aids that we can have? What are the visual aids in presentation has to do with? Of course, it will emphasize we've just covered that, but just to certain points that I've added here, just for you to keep in mind, that when you prepare any kind of visual aids, it could be posters, it could be flip charts, it could be overheads, it could be LCD screens. Overheads are LCD screens, photographs and computer generated slides, anything that you have to add with your presentation. So you have to keep in mind that whatever that you present has to be very, very effective. This is just one extra slide that I've added for you to know that, of course, all the visuals that you are showing, keep in mind, very important, that whatever visuals that you are showing via these posters and photographs has to align with your content. Okay, they have to go hand in hand. This is important. and effective delivering an effective presentation. So obviously it is said that how well it that effectively that you can present. Now how effectively that you can present has to do, it comes down to preparation, it has to come down to very clear communication and definitely engagement. So you have to know your audience. If you have to deliver a very good presentation, very effective presentation, very successful presentation, you have to ensure that need to know your audience, what kind of people, what sort of people are coming, what kind of knowledge that they have, what sort of interest that they have, that they are coming, and then you have to speak according to their knowledge, according to their interest, because obviously you can anticipate questions, they will be asking you questions, and there could be also objections coming from the audience. You have to be very well prepared for your audience. And so you have to structure your content likewise. You have to ensure that yes, and of course my audience is so and so. So when you put down your introduction, you have to state your purpose and let the main points be there, and it has to be supported with visuals and data that you can give. And of course you can summarize all the key takeaways and always end with a call to action or any strong closing thoughts that you need to put across, anything that you need to put across, any action that needs to be taken in future, on with respect to the audience, that has to be summarized very effectively. So you see that. And then engaging slides, very important, that your slides needs to be very, very engaging, with all the proper formatting has to be done, with minimal, you have to keep your text very minimal, charts and images and icons that you put in. You have to ensure bullet points are also there and fonts are very readable, and you have to practice your delivery. So before you deliver, before you give your presentation, your practice has to be complete. Have to really rehearse it, at the comfort of your home, with respect to the timing, with respect to your paralinguistic features, your tone and intonation, your speed. You have to check everything before you present yourself, because you have to be your best. This is very important. So it is said that do not just read everything from the script, whatever you've written, but you also need to learn it also, and you also have to memorize it also, so that the audience feels that yes, this presenter who's standing here knows the subject very well. You have to show them that the subject is very well researched, very well, you're aware of. So you have to really know how to connect with your, see, this is an art. I can say that, all this, that the way that you present yourself is an art. You have to be an artist. You should know the rules, the tricks, the body language, the body cues, how to connect, how to go about, when you are there. So you can ask all kind of rhetorical questions, and you can involve the audience. You can have interludes, you can add humors, you can prompt them, and the way that obviously you will have to also ensure how your audience, keep in mind and be careful, be mindful of the fact how is your audience reacting. A lot of nods, and there could be nods, there could be confusions. You have to handle it all in there. So you have to handle the question and answers. Any question and answer that comes from the audience have to show your confidence, And even if you do not know the answer, you can always, cover up, and always you can, turn and mold and speak on it in a different way. And of course, it is also said that how well that you can use technology. So you can play around with technology, you can use technology to the best of your abilities. And of course, it requires a lot of time. A lot of time goes by, in preparing it and organizing it and planning, what all needs to be added, what are the equipments that you need, so you need to have a backup also, because when you use technology, you have to ensure that, of course, you go and present yourself, but what if something goes really wrong therein, right in there, once you're presenting to the audience, then of course you have to keep in mind that you need to have a backup, you need to have a plan. If you have a plan A, you have to have plan B. So of course you can have a similar USB copies of the slides, you can have printed notes, one printed notes that are there with you, and the other printed notes again you can have as a backup. And it is always said that when you present, let you have cue cards. You should not have a diary, you should not have, A4 sheets, in your hand, but you can have cue cards, just like the way that you have postcards, and postcards in printable forms, that you can have as many that you can need. It could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 15. But if any reading has to be done, if you need to prepare a script, this script can be prepared in a cue card. So this is very important. So you have to really practice very well. So keeping all this in mind, let me tell you that whether it is your GD, whether it is your presentation, whether it is your resume, whether it is your CV, everything that you are doing here, this entire, you can say that this entire lecture has to do with how well trained, how well rehearsed, how well practiced, how well knowledgeable, how well studied you are. So this entire, practice has to start right away. There is no other time that you have. Interview and its various type. Now again, you have to be aware of the fact that you have to prepare for an interview. You have to present yourself before a set of people, before a panel of people. And of course, again, here you have to understand that it's a face-to-face interaction that you have with a set of people wherever that you're going to apply. So once your resume is ready, once your resume is accepted, then you'll be called upon for interview. Maybe interview can take place after your GD. So obviously, when you have to appear for an interview, there's a selection procedure. Now what selection procedure is all about, you need to really understand this. So we can have different types of interviews. Can be interviews of various types. It could be based on purpose, based on structure, and based on certain design aspects. Here design has to do with particular field. Then based on purposes, it could be a research based interview based on your research. It could be a clinical interview in the field of medical sciences. It could be structured, it could be unstructured. You can have an individual interview, and we can have focus group interviews. Then what is it like, what do you really understand when you say the structured interview is a direct interview. So the questions and acceptable responses are specified. So obviously everything, if you talk about structure, so the panel is always ready with their questions. The questions are already designed, pre-designed and pre-decided. And responses that you give, whatever answers that you give, has to be very appropriate and in alignment with the content that has been asked. So these are very standardized interviews, very pre-planned interviews. There's a lot of accuracy, there's a lot of precision. So unstructured ones are indirect interviews. They are open-ended. Interview means any kind of questions can be asked then and there, So there is whosoever is asking, the interviewer is asking you a question, and does not have ready questions. It is there's no set format. As you answer, so will they ask you. So the candidate has to express himself as per the topics, the interests, the expectations, your background. And here the interview is a very open forum. Any kind of questions can come up to you, and you just have to answer then and there. So it's not that the questions are pre-decided, and they look for certain. And what is the aim of the interviewer? To look for certain traits, for certain characters, look for your whether you are a very have aspirations, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, if you have any potentials. All this is taken into account. Various types of interviews are there, which we'll just cover: face-to-face, panel, behavioral, stress, group interview, telephonic, meal time, video, and HR. So what is individual interviews? So these are one-on-one interviews. You're called upon, interviewer is there, interviewee is there, the candidate is the interviewee, and of course there's a detailed assessment of the candidate here. And they're going to judge you. An accurate judgment is made here. One single candidate, so of course judgment can be very accurate. Then you have group interviews. Group interviews are conducted, and there are multiple candidates are there, and then the screening is done as per the number of candidates who are there. They're screened and questions are asked, and of course the employers are able to recognize the best candidates, because obviously again the various skills are enumerated here, and of course you are going to showcase the skills that you have. Then comes telephonic interview. So sometimes, this usually takes place, when the HR or the recruitment uh, section has to assess the candidate in general. So questions can be based on the basis of your because it could be a long distance, because the candidate is not able to go to the place of wherever the interview has taken place. So if you're not able to go there, it could be a distance problem. So telephonic interviews, like cross country, if you're not able to go to the other country, and supposedly it's an international kind of a industry that you've applied and you're not able to reach there, then you can always have a telephonic interview, and based on your resumes and roles and responsibilities and your job profiles, whatever that you've given in your resume, based on that questions will be asked. So this is a kind of a telephonic interviews. And of course, this is the first and the last stage of the interview. Then face-to-face interview is there. Of course, if you're shortlisted, then you're called upon and you can be asked all kind of questions. It could be structured, it could be unstructured. Video interview also takes place in a virtual. This could be a virtual, in a virtual setting, and of course it happens in very remote positions and situations, because obviously, like COVID-19, most of the interviews were taken via video conferencing. And so various social media platforms are there, and like Google Meet, etc., where video conferencing can be done and questions and interviews can take place. Panel interview, there's a panel, means like more than one person. Interviewer could be a group of people who are sitting there. Multiple interviewers are there. They assess their candidate. So this is meal interview. Now this is very interesting. What is meal interview? So meal interview is a very informal kind of a this is a very informal kind of an interview, whereby you'll be called upon to a restaurant. They just needs to see how, of course, the body language is very important, your mannerisms are very important, and how you present yourself. So obviously this is sometimes taken up when they want to be sure how smart and how well versed, and what is your body language, is your persona. It is the persona that is very important. So then you'll be called upon to a certain restaurant at a certain time, and you'll be told and informed about it. So obviously you have to be very well trained in the art of managing yourself to a restaurant, because obviously it is your cultural backdrop that they are kind of going to assess you on. So once you are there, you have to once you've been called upon to a restaurant by your head, by an interviewer, you have to be very careful how you're eating, how you're chewing your food. What is it? They will ask you to order food. You have to decide upon and pre-decide what foods to be ordered, and you have to beforehand. You can go and check the restaurant and be able to be familiarize yourself as to where the bathroom is, and how you have to carry yourself, and so how you have to carry the bread baskets, if it is being presented, you have to pass around to the people. There could be 3 to 4 people, interviewers could be there, in a restaurant. So you should exactly know how to go about all the table manners. You need to know first. So these are like, of course, dining etiquette is very, very important. You need to have certain etiquette, when you go to dine in with someone. Have to be on time, very well prepared. Don't drink, don't limit yourself to just one drink. You have to be very careful. No expensive, things that you need to order. You have to keep that very minimal. You need to order. And so planning and purpose. So you have to research very carefully. This is important. Your career area, where you're going to apply. So you need to plan beforehand, and whatever career that you are interested in, and where you're going to apply for. So, and application has to be read and reread. This is important. And how well that you have prepared yourself for the interview, and you have to be neat and smart, and have to research the employers and the websites and Google. You have to be well informed before you go there. All your non-verbal cues are important. You don't have to cross your arm and sit, and bad postures, slouching, and eye contact is, you do not have to glare. You have to be very careful. You have to be very moderate, and no choppings and pointings of fingers. And it has to be yourself, has to be your, your posture, very minimal gestures. Your postures has to be very, very well aligned. Your head, your shoulder, your hands, your torso, your limb, everything should be in alignment. Eyes should not be shifty, no locking eyes. Now this is just a visuals that you can see here, how you have to sit at a table, whereby the interviewers are there and you are the interviewee. Where you have to keep your hand is what you can see here. See the body language, so what sort of a body language that you need to wear, no crossed legs and no cross arms, and no exclusive body language. Body language has to be inclusive. So this is just a glimpse for you to see. And do's and don'ts, like no slouching, no staring, how you need to sit, like the way that the first picture that you can make out, and can see, that is how that you have to sit straight up and maintain eye contact, be enthusiastic, let your gestures, let there be minimal gestures. So this is just the interview skills that I've just given you and have briefed you, and just go through these and have to be kind of very well prepared. Let your preparation be very up to the mark, and of course be very because it is just the preparation that is very important. And it's a preparation is not a one day, but preparation starts right away, till such time that you pass out, that you're able to give your interview, and of course you come out with flying colors, and then you can have your dream job. Thank you.